In this video, I'm going to be talking about the band Can, and I've been meaning to make this video for quite some time, since Can are one of my favourite bands of all time, and I think one of the greatest bands ever. And it's not a controversial opinion. They're a hugely influential band. And I remember reading the Can biography by a man called Rob Young a few years back, and it's a really great read, and he puts Can right up there amongst the greatest artists of 20th century music, people like Miles Davis and Stockhausen, Lee Scratch Perry, the Velvet Underground, and I think that's a totally fair assessment of the importance of Can. And I've been thinking about how I'm going to make this video work. I don't think Can are the kind of band where I can just sit down and play a cover version of a song and sort of take you through all the parts. I just don't think that would work particularly well. I think Can are all about the magic and the interaction you get between the five members of that band. It's not something I can kind of just sit down and do single-handedly. So what I thought I'd do in this video is just very modestly kind of run through a selection of my favourite Can riffs and guitar parts. And before we get down to business properly, I'm just going to give you a little bit of Can background, just for those of you who've not heard their music before. And I'm actually quite envious of those of you who've not heard Can before. You've just got so much great music to listen to and to explore. Now, Can were a German band formed in the late 60s, I think in Cologne. And two of the members of Can were former students of avant-garde composer Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. And then the drummer Jackie Liebsite was a jazz player, and then you had Michael Caroli, who came from more of a rock and roll kind of background, and then you had the vocalist Malcolm Mooney, who was American. He sang on the first album, the first couple of albums, I think, and then he was replaced by Damo Suzuki, and that formed, I guess, the classic Can lineup. And Can made many classic records, and I think the best place to start for me would be with the three albums done with the classic lineup with Damo Suzuki on vocals. Maybe the best place to start would be this one here, the Egi Bamyasi, if that's how you say it. It's the one with the can of okra shoots on the cover, and that's a nice kind of accessible one. It's got some of their best known tracks on it. And then we've got this one here. This is possibly my favourite Can record, Tago Mago. And this has got lots of those kind of groovy extended jams, and then that sort of second record is a little bit more avant-garde and experimental, which sort of takes a bit more getting into. And then the last record done with Damo Suzuki was this one, Future Days, which many people would say is their masterpiece, and it's an absolutely stunning record. Okay, that's probably enough talking. Let's do some playing, and I'll show you the first riff. I'm going to start with a riff from the song Outside My Door, which is on the first Can album proper, Monster Movie. They did record some material before that, which then saw the light of day as Delay 68, but Monster Movie, I think, was their first proper album, and the riff goes like this. And this is just a great, fairly straightforward riff. I think it shows the influence of the Velvet Underground and also just 60s psych and garage rock kind of music. Pretty simple to play. We've got this droning low E string, and then we just got a little descending chromatic line going from 7, 6, 5 and 4. And then we're going to an E chord, and then C, and back to E again. And just playing that with all downstrokes. The next riff is from the song Paperhouse, which is the opening track on the Tago Mago album, and that goes something like this. So this one has a beautiful atmospheric opening, and then it develops and goes into all kinds of interesting directions. But this opening riff, it's kind of in the key of E minor, and I'm playing it like this. I've got E minor triad, going to a D triad, and then I've got this little kind of Hendrixy hammer-on idea. And I think Michael Caroli, obvious influence on his playing was that of Jimi Hendrix. You can hear that coming out in quite a few places. So we've got this kind of Hendrixy move, then we're coming down to some kind of E minor chord. I'm playing this, so the open two top strings, the E and the B, and I've got another B here at the 4th fret on the B string, and there's some little variations at the end of the phrase that you can hear. So you can just play this chord, play some notes on the 3rd string. I can hear some bass notes in there as well. That might be an overdubbed guitar, but that kind of sounds cool to play that as well. And the sound has got some kind of modulation effect on it. It could be a uni vibe, but I'm just using a phaser with quite a fast speed setting. And then as the track develops, we've got some nice examples of the Michael Caroli lead guitar style. And often when he solos, it's kind of in that blues rock kind of Jimi Hendrix type mold. But I also like the stuff he does with melodies. He's got quite a unique melodic sense. And here he's just playing some nice melodies. He seems to be just moving up and down the length of single string. So I was just playing a melody there. It's not exactly what was on the record, but I think it was close, just going up and down the high E string and then moving on to the B, kind of E minor stuff, and maybe a bit of E Dorian in there, and just turning on a fuzz pedal to get that nice thick sustaining sound. Next I want to look at the riff from the track I'm So Green. This is from the Ege Bamyasi album, and this shows the kind of fun and funky side of Can. I think funk music was obviously a big influence on them, particularly the music of people like James Brown, not only in the kind of funky grooves but also in the minimalism of that kind of approach. Often with funk songs you just have the same chords or the same riff repeating for the entire song, and that's certainly something that Can were unafraid to do. And Michael Caroli was often a great minimalist. He didn't overplay, he just found the perfect part, and then if you just needed to repeat that for the rest of the song, that was what he did. So the riff goes something like this. Just a great kind of funky groove on this one. It's a 4-chord pattern. We've got this chord here, it's an A flat 7 chord, and then we're going to this chord here. This is a D flat 7, the 5th string root, and then we're just taking that same idea down 2 frets. So F sharp, G flat 7, and then to B7, and we're setting up this nice funky kind of 16th note rhythm. And then at certain points in the song you can hear perhaps an overdubbed guitar. It's got this great kind of thin, spidery sound playing some other parts on top. I haven't transcribed these exactly, so it might not be exactly this, but it's something along these lines with these kind of tritone shapes. These kind of ideas just played on the top strings. And you could take that kind of idea up a bit higher. I want to go back to the first album and take a look at the song Mary, Mary, So Contrary, which contains a great repeated chord progression, and there's some lovely melodic soloing over that as well. And the main chord progression goes like this. This is a beautiful chord progression. We're in the key of D minor, I think. It's a 4-chord cycle. The first chord is this one, which is a D power chord really. We've got the open D string, then frets 2, 3, just stretching up for the 5th fret there with my little finger. Then we've got a C major 7. So frets 3, 2, and the top 3 strings are open. And then we've got this beautiful sounding chord. So starting on the A string, we've got frets 5, 3, 3, 3, and then 5 on top. And I'm not quite sure what you would call that one. It sounds to me it's kind of an inversion of a B flat major 7, I think. You've got a B flat major 7, but you've got a D in the bass, the 3rd in the bass. And then finally we've got this. Very Hendrixy sounding chord, this one. So starting on the D string, got 5 open, 3, and then 5 on top, and that chord progression just cycles for the entire track. And then over the top of that, once again, we've got this nice, thick, sustaining lead guitar. So just turn on a fuzz pedal and you could just experiment with some melodies really in the key of D minor. So I was just playing some stuff on the 3rd string. Let's take a look at the song She Brings the Rain, which is actually one of Can's best known tracks, but one of their most uncharacteristic ones, I think. It's actually a gentle kind of swing feel ballad, and I think it was first recorded for a film, and it appears on their album Soundtracks, which is a compilation of their film music. And the first part of that song goes like this. And this one has got a really nice jazzy chord progression, a little bit hard to hear the exact voicings he's using on the recording, but this is what I think is happening here. It's in the key of G minor, starting with this G minor 7, so fret 3, muting the A string, and then 3, 3 and 3. It's based around this kind of jazz descending line, so it starts on the root note, goes up to this B flat, and then just comes down chromatically. So that's the bass line. So it starts on the G minor. Then we've got this chord. I suppose this is, it's like a B flat minor 6. So fret 6, again muting the A string, and then 5, 6 and 6. Then we've got this, which is a diminished 7th chord. It's kind of a passing diminished 7th chord. So fret 5, muting the A, then 4, 5 and 4. So A diminished 7. And then this next chord, it's kind of 5 chord really. It's functioning as a kind of a D7 chord, except we've got this A flat in the bass, so it's kind of a flat 5 substitution, I suppose you could describe that as. So I've got fret 4 here in the bass, muting the A, then I've got 4, 5 and 3. I'm playing that with the thumb round the top. You could fret that in this way instead if you're not comfortable with that thumb over the top thing. And then we're just repeating that chord progression. So various points during the song we've got these kind of Wes Montgomery kind of octave things going on, so just playing some stuff really just in the key of G minor. Let's take a look at the riff from the track Moonshake. This is on the Future Days record. It goes something like this. It's in the key of E minor. We're starting with this in the verses. It's like an E minor triad shape. So frets 5, 4 and 5. And sometimes we're coming down to this shape here, which is like a G major triad, but with the E in the bass it gives you an E minor 7 sound. So occasionally just sliding that shape up 2 frets and catching that high A. That's kind of the verse to the song. It's kind of an E minor feeling. And then for the chorus we've got this. So we're going to an A chord here. So we've got sort of A chord shape just played on the top 4 strings. And I'm adding in this B note, kind of adding in the 9th there. And so going from that, I'll be just pulling off to the A, and then coming over to this F sharp note, and then going back to that E minor triad shape. And on the recording you can hear lots of little variations in that part. It kind of changes a little bit as the song evolves. There are different accents, slightly different rhythms. Let's look at the riff from the track I Want More. And this was actually an unexpected hit single for Can. It reached number 24 in the UK charts, and they even appeared on Top of the Pops, and you can still see that on YouTube. Although the guitarist in the video isn't actually Michael Caroli, it's a stand-in guitarist because apparently Caroli was on holiday at the time. And the main riff to the tune goes like this. Next one is another great funky riff, and it's all based around this E7 chord shape. Playing this in the 5th position, I've got an E, I've got a G sharp, got a D and an E, and you can throw in the open 6th string as well. And we're going between that chord and this chord, kind of an E sus sound, so 7th fret on strings 5, 4, 3 and 2. And what you can do is you can either just flatten down your 3rd finger over all 4 of those notes, or my 3rd finger doesn't quite want to hold down the B string at the same time, so I'm actually holding down 3 strings with my 3rd finger. I'm using my pinky here to hold down this high F sharp, so that seems to work for me, and just going between those 2 chords. And setting up that kind of funky 16th note rhythm. At the very top of the song, you let those chords ring a little bit more open, and then as the band comes in, it seems to get a bit more scratchy and percussive. Probably some different layers of guitar in there. There's a more overdriven one, and then there are some cleaner ones that you can hear later on in the track, but that's the basic idea. And there's this tremolo on the track as well, so I'm just using a tremolo pedal here, but the tremolo kind of seems to be in time with the track on the recording, and that sounds like this. And also on this one, we've got some more of this lovely sustaining melodic fuzzy playing, and I'm sure if you listen to the track you should be able to pull out some of those melodies. Now, I can't really end this video without talking about the track Mother Sky. And this, I think, contains some of Michael Caroli's finest guitar soloing. It's an extended kind of 15-minute jam in E, but it's not really a track that I can reproduce or teach. And what kind of YouTube guitar teacher are you, Adrian, if you can't do this stuff? But seriously, it's kind of quite a wild improvisation. It's not really something you want to learn note for note, but do check out the track because it's totally amazing. Let's talk Can gear and Can sounds. And Michael Caroli associated mostly with a Fender Strat. If you look at all the pictures, the video footage, he's always got a Fender Strat. I don't know if he ever played any other types of guitar. And he was actually the main reason why I decided to get this Olympic white 60s style Strat. You look at pictures of him in the 70s and he just looked so cool. And I kind of hope that some of that cool would rub off on me, and that obviously didn't work, but I got the guitar and that still looks pretty cool, I think. And as far as amps go, I was just doing some research, and apparently he would use a Fender Twin fairly frequently, and also Farfisa amps, and not a company associated with guitar amps particularly. They're mostly associated with keyboards, but an Italian company. I think they made lots of different types of musical gear, and you can see some videos where he's using a Farfisa amp. And it wouldn't at all surprise me if a lot of those Can guitar tones were achieved by plugging straight into the tape machine or into the mixing console and not using an amp at all. And as far as effects go, I think Caroli was very much a minimalist, not too many effects or effects pedals. It was kind of predating the effects pedal era really, and he kind of had the common effects pedals that were around at the time, so a wah-wah pedal, a fuzz pedal. And you can hear these kind of modulation sounds on some of the recordings, whether that was pedals or studio stuff, I don't know, but phaser would work well, a tremolo pedal, maybe some reverb too. A lot of those sustained fuzzy parts would benefit from a little bit of reverb, and it kind of sets them back in the mix, and you can hear that on quite a lot of those Can recordings. So that's what I'm using today. I've got my 60s reissue Fender Strat. My amp today is actually the Fender Princeton, and as far as the exact pedals that I'm using today goes, I've got a fuzz face. This is a Jimi Hendrix series silicone fuzz face. I've also got an overdrive pedal. This is the small speaker overdrive from Great Eastern Effects. I'm using that for the kind of milder overdrive sounds. I've got a phaser, it's an MXR Phase 90. For reverb, I've got a Strymon Blue Sky, and then I've got the tremolo pedal, which I was using on I Want More. That's a full tone super trem. That's it for today's video. If you would like tab of the riffs that I've been discussing, then those are going to be on my Patreon page, and I run the Patreon page on a pay what you like basis just to keep it accessible to everybody, so check that out if you're interested. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.